Realty.
All right, and we're joined by the voice of the Volunteers, Bob Kesling. Bob, how are you?
This mixed TV interview is supplied by Wholesale Supply Group. Visit us online at wholesalesupply.us.
It was kind of treacherous coming through Cleveland today, getting here.
Yeah, how was the weather when you started?
Beautiful sunshine.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's all right here.
Yeah, it's all. Yeah, I was really surprised when got to about Athens and suddenly it just kind of came down. So anyway, but we're here, we're safe, and good to see good friends and a lot of the players outside and coaches and stuff. That's a good thing you do every year.
We love to have you on this morning. Josh Rogers, of course, one of my broadcast partners, he's got to run, but he has got a couple of hard-nosed questions for you. So
listen, we dug really deep this year.
Okay. Oh, here we go.
Some good questions, okay? I've got a few, so if you don't mind, I'd like to ask them.
All right,
Shelton's not here, so he sent some in as well.
Brevity brings clarity.
Yes, there we go.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the biggest news stories this year when it comes to Tennessee was the NCAA sanctions that the NCAA, or the sanctions that the NCAA kind of brought down on Tennessee was really kind of just a slap on the wrist. I mean, not really big, lose some games and everything. How does that help Tennessee? That, like, we're past that now, it's time to move forward.
It lifts the cloud. But I think if you look back over the 2 years that Coach Heupel's been here, I think they've weathered the storm very well. They had scholarship restrictions, but they went in and filled in the transfer portal, and now they're back up to about 85. You've got that cloud hanging over your head, but you get ranked #1 in the country, and you go to the Orange Bowl and win. So I think they weathered the storm very well, and I think that everybody is just glad that it's finally resolved and it's over with, and they can't use that against you in recruiting anymore, and you just keep moving forward. But I think the way Coach Heupel and his staff and the whole athletic department handled the whole situation and all the uncertainty, I think they handled it very well.
According to ESPN, Joe Milton is the #1 most important player in the 2023 college football playoff race for all teams in the NCAA. He gets his third chance to become a star after his battle at Michigan in 2020, Tennessee in 2021, where he lost a starting job. Last season went 971 yards, 10 touchdowns over 9 games behind Hooker. How does he take it to the next step this year? What does he do to be that player, that #1 guy in Tennessee?
Well, I think he's already taken the step. I think you saw it in the Orange Bowl last year, just the way he handled the team, the way he ran the team. There's no question this is his team, and I think everybody on the team, including coaches and the players, understand that they're kind of riding the right arm of Joe Milton this year to see how far they can go. You can't ask for much more experience than Joe has. He's been around the system for 3 years. He knows exactly what Coach Heupel wants to do, and we all know the things that have happened to him in the past, overthrowing guys and throwing the ball too hard. But it looks like his touch is much better. They scrimmaged yesterday. He looked very good in the scrimmage. So I just believe that Joe Milton's ready for a huge year, and if he has a huge year, Tennessee's going to have a huge year.
Last year, you told us a story about Jalen Hyatt going out catching thousands of balls during the summer. You got a number count of throws for Milton this summer. I mean, how many?
I don't know about this summer. I will tell you a story. Last year, there was a scrimmage that they held, and so Joe was rolling around to the right and almost got to the sideline at the 50-yard line, turned and threw the ball diagonally across the field to the back corner of the end zone, and got Ramel Keaton right in stride as he got 1 foot inbound and made the catch. And, I mean, it was just unbelievable. I'd never seen anybody throw the ball like that. So after the scrimmage, I went up to Coach Heupel and I said, Coach, that was a heck of a throw by Joe Milton. He said, well, you should have seen 2 he made yesterday. So this arm talent is what Coach Heupel calls it, is very remarkable. And so he's really done big. But they've got Brew McCoy is going to be a big time receiver. Deontay Thornton, the guy they brought in from Oregon, Scorer White, Ramel Keaton. All these guys have really put in the time, and as you said, get on the jugs gun. You see them out there all the time, almost daily. If they're not in class, they're out there catching balls on the jugs, or Joe Milton's out there throwing. So I just think they bought in. I really believe that Coach Heupel, when he came in from day one, brought in a confidence. I mean, Coach Heupel is a very confident coach. Yeah. That he thinks that he can draw up plays and he can out-scheme you and he can coach guys up. And so far he's been able to do that. But that confidence that he brings to his skill set, I think, rubs off on the team.
First game, September 2nd, Virginia in Nashville. Biggest question mark for Tennessee this year is?
Probably the defense. Can the guys they brought in at linebacker and the defensive line, can they replace Byron Young? They got to have a pass rusher, so he's not bad. They've got a lot of guys that have played a lot of time in the secondary, but who wins those jobs and how does that mold together? Those are I think, the biggest questions defensively. I mean, Coach Heupel's offense is going to score, but can you get the other team off the field? And that's the big key.
We have to win games, right? Tennessee has to win games to win the SEC East and to make it to the championship.
Yeah.
But how do they do that? How do they make it that next step and go over Georgia this year?
Well, I just think that you've got to go out. You can't turn the ball over. And one thing they have to do defensively, I believe, and I think most of the coaches will tell you, that they got to create more turnovers. They didn't create enough turnovers and put pressure on the other team's offense as much as they should have. And I think if they create more turnovers, more interceptions, force more fumbles, that's just going to make it easier on the offense. I don't think there are many schools out there that are looking forward to playing Josh Heupel's offense. I don't think even the Alabamas and the Georgias and the Floridas, they're not looking forward to playing the offense. But can Tennessee avoid a South Carolina game like they had last year? That's one of your defense has got to be solid the whole year because they're going to score points. We know that.
I've got two final questions for you. This one's not.
He did come for a period, didn't he?
Absolutely.
Well, at least one of us did. Yeah.
Just two more questions.
That's
and
fine.
This isn't about Tennessee.
Hey, the more we can keep Heartline off the air, the better it is for everybody.
That's what I've been trying to do. This is about the entire NCAA.
Right.
College realignment. What does it mean for Tennessee? What does it mean for the SEC? And what are your thoughts about the SEC adding more teams to it? Good or bad for the NCAA?
I don't know. I don't know if it's good or bad yet. Nobody knows if it's good or bad yet. But it's what's going on. You're not going to stop it.
Yeah.
It's like a railroad locomotive going down a track downhill. You can't really stop it. I would be shocked if it was the end of expansion, but don't tell me who they're going to. If you can tell me what happens to the ACC, because you got some teams over there that I'm sure would love to join the SEC. Florida State, for one, Clemson, Virginia Tech. There are a lot of schools that would like to join the SEC. I just don't know where all the money is going to come from. You talk about ESPN hemorrhaging money right now. But so are they going to be willing to dish up another $60 million to bring two more teams into this league from the rights fees they're already paying? I don't know. That's my biggest question. But, I was thinking everybody's talking about all this expansion and how it's changing the face of college football. Back in 1906, they were going to get rid of football, and Theodore Roosevelt forced them to put the forward pass in. When they started giving away athletic scholarships in the 50s, everybody thought, this is the end of college football because it's the end of amateurism and all that stuff. Then Title IX, well, they're going to take all that money away from football and help the women's sports. That's going to kill football. Nothing seems to kill football. I mean, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And so whatever the new curveballs or the hurdles that people are throwing at college football, they're going to adapt, and they're going to make changes. I mean, the SEC and the Big Ten aren't going anywhere. Yeah. Now, what happens to these other leagues, that's what we're going to find out. But the SEC and the Big Ten, one of the reasons that they're so strong is because when you start talking about the contracts and the media rights, well, the SEC and the Big Ten have most of the major media markets, and that's a big thing.
Final question that I have, and it's a personal question, okay?
Oh, here we go.
So a lot of people who listen to
whatever Heartline said, I did not do it. I had nothing to do with that.
And this is not from his time on Jerry Springer. Is that right?
It's not. No, this is his time from being the voice of the Vol.
Oh, here we go.
Right.
Probably one of the biggest calls, and there's been many calls that you've had, but one of the biggest calls that you have probably had in the past 20 years, I think it is. 25 years as the voice of the Vols.
That's hard to believe, isn't it?
That's unbelievable.
Was the knuckleball call.
Yeah.
Is that your favorite call that you've ever had? Or if not, what is the most favorite call that you've ever had?
I don't know. That was, you remember games. I remember when Casey Clausen hit Jason Witten in the 6th overtime to win. I remember that call. I remember the call down to the Orange Bowl when we beat Miami. You remember the games more than you remember the calls. The calls, you just hope to not mess them up. I mean, you hope to get them right because that Alabama call is going to live on for 20 years.
Yeah.
And so you need to make sure you don't, get it right. And so
there's one call that you have that I wish didn't live on for 20 years, but it's okay. It was the Georgia in the end zone last second.
Remember, he's a dog
Georgia.
fan.
So
That
was another Juwan Jennings. Yeah, that was another good. That was another good call. Yeah. Tim Priest about fell out of the booth on that call. So. But that was. But that game was one of the most unbelievable games because Georgia. People forget Georgia threw a Hail Mary. Mm-hmm. And the whole, you thought the whole bubble had burst. And how do you recover from a Hail Mary? Well, how you recover, you come back and throw your own and beat them. So, yeah, that was special. I've just been so blessed. I came here as a walk-on fullback in 1972, didn't know anybody in the state of Tennessee, didn't know a single player on the team. And here I am these years later, and look where I am. I'm so blessed that things have happened, and things have kind of come my way, and I've had this opportunity because when I came here in '72, I had no vision of such things happening to me. So I'm very thankful for the people along the way that have helped me, and you don't do it on your own. You got a lot of help.
Do you practice that? And I want to ask if you practice those type of big calls. You have the kids that are out there and they're hitting the Grand Slam and the World Series. As a radio broadcaster, as the voice of the Vols, do you go back and listen to some of the big calls that you've had? Do you go back and listen to the games?
Yeah. Well, the problem you get when you do that, and I do it. I mean, I do go back and listen to games and critique myself. But the problem is when you do that, you just beat yourself up so badly because you think, gosh, I wish I would have said that, or I could have done that. How could I have made that call better? But that's how you try and get better. But, you've got to go back. And I'll tell you, this is really, I learned a lesson when I first started because I was doing Lady Vol basketball back in the late 70s because nobody else wanted to do it. And I was getting paid $15 a game. And if we had a road game, I had to pay my own gas.
That's what we still do here.
So anyway, I'm here. I am. I'm 1 year out of college, and I'm doing SEC basketball. I never viewed it as women's basketball, but I viewed it as basketball, SEC basketball. And so we were doing a doubleheader at Stokely, and the Lady Vols played the first game, and the men played the second. And so we're on the old broadcast ramp up there at Stokely. And so I get done with the Lady Vol game, and the basketball team's down below getting ready to warm up, and John Ward hadn't gone on the air yet. So I took my tape over to him, and I said, Mr. Ward, if you would, I'd like to see if I've recorded part of the game I just did. I'd like to see if you would critique it for me and, tell me maybe how I can get better. And John, of course, I'd love to do that. So, and he takes the tape, puts it in his briefcase. I don't hear from him for like 2 weeks. And so we have another doubleheader game 2 weeks later. And so I'm down there at the very end of the crow's nest there, and John's over on the other side. So I get done with the Lady Vol game, and I walk over, and I said, Mr. Ward, did you have a chance to listen to my tape? He goes, yes, I did. Yes, I did. I critiqued it. I said, well, great. And he goes over and gets in his orange briefcase, and he opens it up, gets the tape out, hands it back to me, looks at me and says, try advertising, and turned and walked away. And I got the message pretty clear that you need to get better, and you need to get better right now. And that probably, it was very simple and very understated, but very powerful, that you don't just mail it in. You better get better, and you got to work at this. And it takes a lot of work.
That's what we love about Mixed TV, is that we get to watch the morning show every single morning, and then we get to critique Steve on everything that he does throughout the day. But, hey, Mr. Kesling, thank you so much. An honor to interview you.
Thank you.
Wish you guys all the best this year, except for against Georgia. And,
it's in November this year.
Vols.
People,
it is.
I don't think it's settled in for people. It's going to be
late.
It's going to be a lot of there'll be a lot of things riding on the line in that game. But
Josh, thank you, buddy. And I also want to introduce someone here. He's newer to the community. Jerret Millsaps is the CEO of Tennova Healthcare Cleveland. Did they see your pants yet?
I don't know if they panned to the pants yet, but in honor of you,
I appreciate that,
Bob. We had to do the orange pants.
That's great. That's great.
Jarrett, anything you have for Bob?
No, just really appreciation, right? I'm a University of Tennessee graduate, long time growing up with John Ward, growing up with Bobby Denton, I was there when they stopped Bo Jackson in Knoxville. And so an appreciation for what you do and what you bring. I guess my question would be, you've been there for almost 25 years now.
Yeah.
How do you rate kind of the vibe inside the building right now, right? You've seen a lot of transition, and not just in football, but across the athletic department as a whole with Danny White and the rest of them. How do you grade us out?
I mentioned the confidence factor of Josh Heupel, but Danny White also has a lot of confidence in his ability to, and what he's done with all these coaches, if you notice, he's extended a lot of their contracts. So he's saying, listen, you're here for the long haul in most of the sports. And he has also told them, what do you need? And we'll get it for you. And so as a coach, you don't have any excuses for not being successful. So he's not taking excuses. Well, don't tell me you don't have that because you've got this and you've got your facilities are as good or better than anybody in the country. So go with. But so that whole attitude is kind of rubbed off on everybody. And I think that when you give the people that work for you a chance to be successful, a pretty good chance your whole operation is going to be successful. And that's kind of the way Danny's
Do you see
done it.
that kind of having an influence in the broader university culture with Chancellor Plummer?
I think so. I think they'll tell you that when the football team and the basketball teams are doing well, they get a lot more applications and a lot more people wanting to come to school because, as Ed Bowling always used to say, the former president, athletics is the front porch of the university. Mm-hmm. People see the athletics, a lot of times before they see how the engineering school is and, all those type things. And it is. And the reputation and the atmosphere that you build off your athletic teams goes a long way to getting students and just the whole feeling on campus. And I know this, my minister tells me this, that when Tennessee wins, the offering on Sunday is a lot better.
Your minister?
I think it's the whole community who kind of benefits off Tennessee.
That's great.
Jimmy Logan.
Bob, you honored me, allowing me to come with you in Birmingham because my children wound up there. Never send your children away from Tennessee to school because they fall in love with Alabama boys.
Don't do that.
Come on. That's just terrible. But anyway, what a great time. Vol Nation is not just located in Tennessee. People come from Alabama and across the country to go to school academically and athletically. And Vol Nation's around this whole United States. Big group in Atlanta, as you know, and in Birmingham. And certainly I think I may have contributed to the loss to Alabama that year. But I can tell you something. That Alabama game changed Vol Nation dramatically. A spirit came back in Alabama. I think you're going to see a big crowd. I don't know if we're going to have the meeting of the Birmingham Big Orange Club, but I want you to know that people in Alabama have raised significant questions about Coach Saban. And
we don't have enough time to get into all those, do we?
I'm not going to go there. I'm just going to tell you that they say Saban's gone if he loses to Tennessee, and they say that they're going to stomp us.
He just bought a $35 million beach house in Jupiter, Florida, so I think things are okay.
I think you're right that the Alabama game last year, it was one of the most remarkable build-ups to any game because that's all they talked about all week, and people went into that game thinking and believing that Tennessee was going to win. And that hadn't happened in a couple decades. Yeah. But, you had the hope. Well, if we do this and do that. But the people going into this year's game thought, well, yeah, we're going to beat them. We're better with them here. We're better here. And it was such a great game because it wasn't the fact that Alabama lost the game. Tennessee just beat them. I mean, Bryce Young couldn't have played any better at quarterback for Alabama, and Hendon Hooker was tremendous. And, Steve, I think I've told this story on the air when you called me maybe after the game, but my daughter and her husband brought our two grandkids to the game. They're 9 and 7. So everybody was standing up the whole game. So they were having a hard time seeing. And they're looking around people and getting up on bleachers and trying to see what they could from the game because everybody's going crazy. So now it comes out for Chase McGrath to kick the game-winning field goal, and somehow it gets over the crossbar. I still think the football gods were looking at it because I don't know how that kick got over the crossbar, spinning sideways and everything else. So everybody's going crazy, and my daughter looks around for our 7-year-old grandson, George, and he is gone. Don't know where he is. and she's panicking, and she's looking around, doesn't know whether he's climbing the light towers or where he is, doesn't know where he is. And she's kind of panicking a little bit, and she looks across the aisle, and about 4 seats down, there's this guy, and he's got George on his shoulders, and they're jumping up and down, high-fiving each other. And I said, Allison, did you know the guy? She said, I'd never seen the guy in my life. But he saw little George there trying to see the game, and he picked him up and said, you're going to remember this the rest of your life, and put him up on his shoulders so he could see the game. Wow. And there were stories like that all over.
You may have seen it, but like at the Florida game, I took our daughter to the Florida game too, and it was interesting once we got over that hump and we're able to close that out as people are walking out of Neyland Stadium, they're saying it is possible now.
Sure.
It is possible.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the confidence from Coach Heupel.
Yeah. One last statement.
Yeah.
And this is a statement and not a question. Most of the folks I listen to Tennessee football games, even where they're on television, they listen to the voice of the Volunteers.
I'm glad that happens.
And that happens because you tell us more than we actually sometimes see.
Well,
we rethink it.
Well, I credit Tim Priest, who was my longtime partner, now Pat Ryan, who'll be with me. They know a lot of football, and so I rely on those guys to kind of tell us what's going on. And you know, the thing that we're really proud of, too, and this is something maybe we don't even toot our own horn much about, but, you know, John Ward and Bill Anderson were UT grads, and myself and Pat and Tim Priest before that were UT grads. So now for over 50 years, going on 60 years, the guys that have called Tennessee football are all Tennessee grads. There aren't many networks that can say that because their announcers are invested in the program and really want to see it succeed. It's, you know, we kind of say that it's the 75th year of the Vol Network too,
wow,
which was started by Lindsey Nelson.
Well, and I was going to mention your friendship with Lindsey.
Oh, yeah.
Over the years. I mean, unbelievable.
Well, Lindsey, people forget, you know, he was from Columbia, Tennessee. And he came to Knoxville to go to school. Then, he, of course, went off to the war. And then he was the press, I guess, with the first SID. He worked for General Neyland. And then he goes into General Neyland and says, I think I've got a way to get our radio broadcasts across the state. And back then, there was no satellite or anything, so it was really complicated to do radio and telephone hookups and rebroadcast. And so he goes out there and lays this big spreadsheet in front of Coach Neyland, how they're going to do it. And Coach Neyland just worried about winning football games. He didn't even know what Lindsey's talking about. And so, and Lindsey goes, you know, we're going to call it the University of Tennessee Volunteer Football Sports Network. And the general just looks at him and said, Lindsey, just call it the Vol Network. Keep it simple. And he said, yes, sir, General, the Vol Network. So it was the Vol Network because the General Neyland named it, and it's going to be the Vol Network forever. And while all these other networks that you see out there, this is brought to you by and presented by, we're the Vol Network, and that's what we are, and that's what we'll always be. So a lot of tradition.
We love it. We really appreciate the guys who've come in. Bob's going to stay with us a little while longer.
I am?
And,
okay.
Well, I don't know. That's what I'm told. But we do need to get to Bridget. We've got some traffic issues out there, and also need to check our Simmons Bank celebration list.